AskReddit by Takis for life. What should go in the fridge that people don't realize should go in the fridge? Believe it or not, super glue. Why? Camera film. It can stay fresh years past the expiration date if refrigerated. You just unlocked a childhood memory of seeing those little containers in the fridge. I never thought to question it back then, and then they were phased out. Now I know. Saffron. Seal it in a glass container in the fridge. Will last almost forever. I thought I would slide my amusing saffron story in here. I was checking out at the supermarket and my total came to over $10,000 for maybe 2 sacks of ordinary groceries. It turned out that the cashier had rung up my 2 pounds of apples as saffron threads. I'm not great at noticing my totals at the market, but I thank my lucky stars that I was on the ball that particular day. After reading through all comments, I feel that it's best I put my entire kitchen in the fridge. Except for the tomatoes. Edit. The amount of upvotes is hilarious. I don't even like tomatoes. Vermouth. https://www.cerealreceipts.com/best-way-to-store-vermouth-for-winner-saver-rebottling. Learned this recently. I wish they'd sell that stuff in small bottles for occasional drinkers. Feels dumb to buy a big ass bottle and use like 2 tablespoons then throw the rest away a year later. Cans of yeast. I was always taught to keep yeast in the freezer. Fish oil supplements. My doctor told me it helps with the aftertaste. There are fish oil supplements that don't give me that symptom. Opened maple syrup. Only if it's real maple syrup. That high fructose crap can stain the cabinet. I think I'll just set my kitchen temp to 40 degrees F and call it a day. I prefer to have a nice warm box to live in when it's cold outside, but then of course I put a cold box inside my warm box to keep the food in. There are 3,000 responses, but it shocked me to see that Bisquick says to refrigerate after opening on the box. If anyone sees this, maybe they'll find out today. Opened grated parmesan. Pizza places don't like this comment. I just have to say that there was a sponsored ad at the top, so the first thing I saw was veterans. I was very confused. As a veteran, feel free to store me in the fridge. I'm aging much more rapidly than I expected, so I'm willing to try anything at this point. Cooked rice. Not only needs to be refrigerated but should be put in a shallow dish so that it cools faster. Apparently, rice has its own nasty bacteria that is rare in other foods. Learned this in a food handling course run by Public Health. Wait, are there people that don't put cooked rice away? They just let it sit out for hours? Open jam. My parents decided to do their own research and keep open jam in the cupboard. I showed them how it said on the jar to keep refrigerated, but they said it was fine. Fast forward a month and my mom admitted that their jam had gotten moldy and they were now keeping jam in the fridge again. Hershey's chocolate syrup. Fucking says it on the bottle, yet people insist it's fine. And it tastes better cold, emo. Beef stock. Sorry, mom. Does anybody else just put the things that belong in the fridge after opening in the fridge right away prior to ever opening? What? Who leaves stock just out? Bats. My neighbors were nutty animal lovers. The short story is to save a rescued brown bat. I live in Maine. They made a little box with a stick hung horizontally, hung the bat, and stuck it in the fridge so it could survive the winter. If I find a bat, I will not consider putting it in the fridge. I have ants, so 99% of my opened food goes in my fridge. The only food I don't have in there is honey and peanut butter, and those I keep in an airtight container. Have you tried putting the ants in the fridge? Defrosting meat. Edit. I guess I should have clarified that I was suggesting the refrigerator over putting the meat out on the counter. I know there are other ways. I had a roommate who would defrost packages of chicken thighs on the balcony in the summer heat for 10+ hours. She'd kindly offer some of whatever she cooked, but I always turned it down. I was told this a while ago, but it's a good trick to remember with fruits and veggies. If it's in the refrigerated section, it should go in the fridge. Berries, cucumbers, lettuce etc. If it's just on a stand, it can go on the counter. Apples, bananas, tomatoes etc. This was just a guidance. Do what you want with your produce. And for those that have never seen produce refrigerated at the store, cool. All the stores in my area have both, and some even have sprayers on the produce to add moisture. After a fruit fly outbreak this past year, all my damn produce goes in the fridge. No more fruit bowl on the counter for me. I'm still suffering PTSD from it. Opened maple syrup. Suggested you even put it in the freezer as whole syrup doesn't freeze. Came here to say this too. At least you should refrigerate real maple syrup. I'm sure Aunt Milk can stain the cupboard. People who, often incorrectly, blame the last thing they ate for their food poisoning. Pro tip: sometimes it actually is the last thing you ate, but more often it's something you ate over the past 1-3 days. Sometimes, although rarely, it's even longer than that. Here's some good info. https://www.cdc.gov/food-safety/outbreaks/confirming_diagnosis.html close bracket on incubation periods for foodborne illness. This reminds me, I often feel really bad for restaurant owners who get blamed for food poisoning issues that had nothing to do with them or their establishment. Flour. You really don't want pantry moths. LPT. Freeze your dry goods like flours, beans and grains, rice, for 72 hours before you store them in containers on the shelf, and the cold will kill off any eggs or larvae that they contain. No more pantry moths. Almond flour or nuts. They can go rancid quickly. Things I learned today: I have open Ziploc sealed bags of almonds, walnuts, pecans and cashews in my cabinets, all at least a month or 2 old. Some older. I just eat a handful once in a while. Need to research this a bit. Thanks for the info. Any food that you've cooked and are done eating. Looking at you. In-laws who leave entire meals out on the table or counter for hours. Keep hot foods hot and cold foods cold. Room temperature for either is a bad idea. I thought it was bad to immediately refrigerate hot food. Was better to let it cool down first, in a sealed Tupperware. Apparently the turkey for 5 days, as I read in a recent post. Hot sauce seems to last longer in the refrigerator. But then it would be cold sauce. American eggs. We have chickens and store our eggs at room temp unless we wash them. Once they're clean, they should be stored in the fridge because the outer membrane, cuticle, on the eggshell is removed during that process, and that's what prevents bacteria from getting into the egg itself. I was called a bitch for packing my lunch in a cooler bag with an ice pack. Apparently eating spoiled and expired food is manly. One time, I was at a picnic with my mom, and she refused to eat because the sandwiches she made had been out of the fridge for a couple of hours. I said, "What about all the years you made me sandwiches before school, 7 AM, and I didn't eat until lunchtime, 12:30 PM?" She said, "Fuck. You're right." Then she stopped complaining and ate a sandwich. Edit. If you know moms, then you know they are impossible to argue with, so the small victory will always live with me. My cat, according to her. God, when my cat was a kitten, he would always sneak into the fridge and hide. It was his favorite place in the world. Reading this post scares me. Most of these things have it right on the bottle. Can't eat at everybody's house. Honestly, I'm reading through this thread and am shocked and horrified by what people are not refrigerating. Who raised you all? Room temperature gremlins? This is all food storage 101. Condiments. And my condiments to you too, sir. A box of baking soda. Can't believe how many people's homes that I visit have a smelly fridge, even if it's sparkling clean and spotless. They don't realize how much odors tend to linger on in there. In my own fridge, even if it has air filters, there's sometimes not enough, so I always keep a box of A&amp H in there and change it out every month. Better to pour the box out. It only works by the smelly molecules coming into contact with the baking soda. Activated charcoal is supposed to be better, but A&amp H have much better marketing. Many medicines. Product info sheets will tell you where to store your medicines. Products with labels like refrigerate after opening, weed germ. Having gone through all the comments, I'm inclined to think that the optimal solution is to refrigerate my entire kitchen. Walk-in fridge instead of a pantry. Let's make it a thing. In this thread I learned that people don't follow written directions on packaging. Okay, hear me out. Deodorant, at least the gel kind like I use, it feels like the tongue of God is licking my pits. That's definitely something I was not expecting this morning. Why is the tongue of God cold though? Worcestershire sauce. It's written on the bottle even. It goes on the sauce shelf alongside the other various bottles such as smoke essence, assortment of chili sauces, 6 types of mustard and grandma's homemade apple jam from 2018. Batteries taste way better if you keep them in the fridge. A lot of natural skincare should be refrigerated. Anything that literally says refrigerate after opening. This reminds me of a story I once read here. The girl was opening every jar she had just bought from the grocery store before putting them in the fridge. The new boyfriend didn't understand why she was doing this and her replied, well, it says to refrigerate after opening. Leftover pizza. Never heard of it. I am bewildered. There are people who don't refrigerate the things mentioned here. Right? I mean, imagine not refrigerating your veterans. Now somebody make a reverse post. I ain't got enough room in my fridge for all this shit. Your leftover pizza. Stop leaving that shit out overnight, Dave. This made me bust out laughing because my uncle does this and his name is Dave. Not Indiana Jones. That was dumb. The 1,000-year-old night, believable. Riding an inflatable raft out of an airplane, down the Himalayas, totally. The fridge, too much, man. How big are all your fridges? I have 2 teenage boys who eat a lot and our fridges pack no room to keep nuts and almond flour and beauty products and cake in there. Maybe I need a thread of things people put in fridges that don't need to be there. Garage fridge.